Thanks for joining us for this episode of Coffee with Closers, where business leaders share insights on how to build businesses from the ground up and best practices for innovating in their industry.
For the audience that don't know about you, can you share a little bit about who you are?
Sure. My name is Pete. Currently running a company called DATABOX, and spent a little over 9 years at HubSpot. I was the 15th employee there, and then built the partner program there. I started the partner program, scaled that up past 100 million in revenue, and thousands of agencies around the world. And then for a little while, helped HubSpot get the sales blog going. So I wrote a lot of sales content, and then just decided to look for a new challenge and ended up at DATABOX.
Makes sense, yeah. So you were the VP of sales running the channel partner sales, and now you're CEO of an organization.
Yes.
How has that transition been?
Good. I had started a company when I was much younger, a few years out of school. So it wasn't the first time I was CEO, but I like to say that, or I often say that I learned a lot at that startup because we did everything wrong, and then I learned a lot at HubSpot because a lot of things went right, and so I felt like I had the right experiences at that point, and saw HubSpot from a real scrappy startup to a public multi-billion-dollar company. So the other thing, in my role at HubSpot, it wasn't. I was managing a large sales team, but I also had a lot of involvement with both the marketing team, because co-marketing and marketing to agencies, that was key to the program success, as well as with the service team, because unlike in traditional sales where you might sell the deal and never talk to the salesperson again, at least in software, in the channel program, the salespeople stayed in touch and worked with the partners, as you know. And so we had to work very closely with the services team. So I feel like I had a good handle on how to run sales, marketing, and service to some degree. And then I'd also say I was early enough at HubSpot to be, and senior enough to be involved in many of the strategic decisions along pricing and packaging and go-to-market and positioning. So to some degree, some influence on the product direction and stuff. So had enough experience there. I'm also a developer before that, so I had enough. I know enough about building software. So felt ready and took the plunge.
The challenge was,
And I was looking forward to it, because it's like at HubSpot I had influence over some of those decisions, but not decision making. And so what I've learned there, both what to do and what not to do, I've been able to really actually make those decisions and calls and execute on it. So it's been fun.
And I'm assuming you still have access to some of those top tier leadership team members, so you can pick up a phone and call and ask for advice. And
I could. I don't do a lot of that. I probably should do more of that. I read a lot, but yes, I can call those guys, no problem. They'll take my call usually. Yeah, a lot of the HubSpot execs invested in DataBox when I joined. And I believe we're the 7th largest HubSpot app partner. They call it app. It's the app program, not the Connect program anymore. I'm still adjusting, but I think we're the 7th largest partner for agencies. So of HubSpot's agency partners, we're the number one integration, at least as far as the directory goes. And then we have heavy usage amongst the startup program, because we have a free version of our product that isn't just like a tease, it's an actual real robust free tool. So we have a lot of users there that have connected their HubSpot accounts.
Awesome. So like you said, you're a pro when it comes to sales. You build sales organization. You've been there. You also have a large amount of experience being in the marketing space, building a marketing tech product, now more of an analytics product. So what are some of the lessons you've learned from actually leveraging inbound marketing as a driver for demand gen, and then also empowering your sales team to actually work those leads? What are some of the lessons you've learned from doing that? Yeah,
it's a lot different than the selling motion we had at HubSpot. So if I go way back to my first job out of school, was a sales engineer for a manufacturing company, and I'd literally get on a flight with ship product out to them, get on a flight and spend 3 days in the manufacturing facility, putting our product on their machine, running tests, measuring the output and stuff. The real selling actually happened at night when we'd take the customer out for dinner and drinks, right? So that's the very old school, I think, way of getting it done. And then at HubSpot, we really, I think, pioneered the inbound and inside sales model. there was really no one doing inbound only. There were companies doing inside sales, but it was usually outbound inside sales. And so I think we were like the pioneers around figuring out, once marketing is actually generating leads, what do you do from a sales perspective to close them? But we were still selling, as you know, a relatively complex, robust product to a relatively unsophisticated customer, at least in the early days. And so we were not just selling them software, but actually teaching them new ways to market their business. And so it was a relatively consultative process where we would have to then figure out what their business goals were, right? Figure out what they're trying to achieve in terms of their growth, their revenue, and back calculate into lead volume and traffic, and help them think through like what they should do and what strategies should they follow, and then convince them that like blogging should help you grow traffic, and landing pages and offers will help you get leads, and of course it's evolved now. There's chat and video and there's a million other things you could do. But it was a relatively complex sale. And I think what's happened more recently in the last few years with software sales is freemium is the next game changer, but and it's even bigger than the inbound or inside sales model. Of course, it's dependent on inbound and dependent on inside, so it's something on top. But the amount of friction that you can remove in the buying process by having a free version of your product is just ridiculous, and it concomitantly then reduces your sales costs significantly. So, like in HubSpot, a rep makes between, a closing rep will make between 110 and maybe 200K annually, and they're closing maybe, it's a little different now, but let's just say 10 to 100 deals per year. Whereas like at DATABOX, 70% of our customers don't talk to us before they buy. So they just try the free product. They might try a free trial of our paid version and then just purchase the product with no assistance from us. And so do the math on the sales cost at HubSpot, where maybe just for round numbers, closing 100 deals a year, and you're paying $100,000 for that. That's $1,000 just for the salesperson, not to mention the sales manager and the marketing and the cost of the exactly. So at DATABOX, where I have very little sales CAC comparatively,
and it's completely counterintuitive as well when you think about it. Like, hey, why would I want to give my product away for free? That was kind of the opposed to what people must have.
Yeah, I think most software companies really still struggle with it because you're battling. It's like, how do I get more and more customers, but also how do I increase my average sale price? And that's that for a SaaS company, a software subscription company. Those are the two numbers that you want to play with. And I think, SaaS companies build features and they're like, we can charge for this, right? And if they can charge for it, it goes into the charge thing. And it's like over time, as they build more features into the product, they'll increase the price. I think HubSpot just increased their HubSpot Sales Pro price to $100 a seat or something, or at some point in the next few months it's going up. They kind of warned us. And so, as you build up those features, you're tempted to do that. And I think for HubSpot's also very generous. They give the whole CRM away for free. They now have a bunch of marketing tools that are free or much cheaper. So I think HubSpot does a good job of doing both. But for an earlier stage software company, it's like the decision is like, do we monetize a little bit more and faster, or do we get more users? And so for us, we've balanced that out. Over the next 6 months, we'll do much more on the give more away. We have some new features coming out in the free version. Well, it'll be in all versions, but we'll start it in the free version. Higher limitations on other features as well that we're going to be testing. And so the idea is that the more free users I have, the more likely they're going to buy, the more active they are and the more they get hooked, the more likely they're going to buy at some point. Also, the more likely they'll tell somebody else about the product and help me with my word of mouth. And there'll be just less effort on the sales side, less cost on the sales side.
Most certainly. So you hit on some key points here, right? Because when you think about kind of the entire sales process and also just the buyer's journey as a whole, right? The traditionally how people used to buy, that has completely changed. And also, people have a lot more information today because they're empowered with the knowledge coming and consuming content and all that kind of stuff marketers putting out, right? So what are business leaders need to start understanding when they're so quick to go hire $100,000 base salary sales engineer whose time is extremely expensive to spend on calls, or even stand at a trade show booth and do things that are still the old-fashioned way, when in fact they're so super concerned about taking a plunge into try to go do some sort of an inbound strategy
Yeah.
in terms of creating demand and driving new sales.
Right.
Some of the newer.
I think the old analogy that we use at HubSpot still works. It's renting versus buying. You can go rent your house, and at the end of 10, 20, 30 years you own nothing, or you can get a mortgage and buy your house, and at the end of 10, 20, 30 years you own it, and you have an asset. And so I think it's the same thing. Like an investment in sales is renting, an investment in marketing, specifically inbound and content marketing, is buying. And so like I don't understand why companies do that. The only reason is short term. They're just short term focused. So like when I joined DataBox, they had a brilliant product and they had a handful of larger customers. Kind of decided we were going to go freemium. We decided we were going to help SMBs, small businesses. And so in the beginning, it was me doing the sales, marketing, and the service. And so like I'm doing all, obviously no, if I'm going to scale, we have 1,400 customers now. There's no way one person could do all three of those things. So I knew I was going to hire for those, and the first hire I made was a marketing person. The second hire I made was a customer service person. And I gradually weaned myself out of sales. We eventually hired a salesperson who really helped us get our first few hundred customers and refine our product and get to that point. And now we have a team of 8 who basically I call them pre-sale support, because they're not selling, they're helping. The user will come in, they might get stuck on something, or they might want to know if the product can do something, and we're available on chat, not quite 24/7, but we're getting closer to that, and we'll just answer the question. Right? We don't need to budget qualify them. I don't need to figure out what their timeline, because the investment I make to help them a little bit is so small. It's not worth trying to bug them to figure out if they're going to buy or not. I should just help them all. And so as a result, like I can have 8 people helping 4,000 we get 4,000 new signups every month, and those 8 people can handle that.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, and not to mention our other free users and using it, and then we have 8 more people in our customer support who actually are a little more technical, and they provide backup to free, and then of course handle our customer
Makes sense.
stuff.
So basically, when I'm thinking about kind of the entire sales process again, right, going back to some of the ideas that we were talking about. So what were some of the things that you've done at HubSpot or even at even DataBox? I know you're not doing too much in terms of hand-holding sales process, like to really help them understand the cost of acquisition when they're doing sales and marketing, right? What were some of the things that you've done to make sure that the customer understand there's a real cost in acquiring a customer even if you're not doing marketing, but if you have salespeople? Yeah,
it's
people
are
relatively
ignoring about it. Relatively simple math, right? Yeah. So I was on a podcast a few months ago now where all this guy does is he asks Nathan Locke, I don't know if you know him. All he does is only interviews SaaS CEOs, SaaS founders, software as a service founders, and ask them what their unit economics are. What's their CAC? What's your customer acquisition? What's your LTV? What's your churn rate? All that stuff. So I'd listened to his podcast. I came prepared. Actually sent him all the numbers beforehand. It's very simple to calculate your customer acquisition. And you're saying most people don't do that. Is what you're saying. And it's funny with Nathan Locke's interview. A lot of CEOs, even though he's very formulaic, don't come on with that data. It's like all you have to do is listen to 2 or 3 of his podcasts. You know exactly what he's going to ask you. And so, marketing costs plus sales costs divided by the number of customers you got that month. So for me, probably around $25,000 to $30,000 of marketing costs every month between my writers and my marketer, my 3 marketers in house, and then I probably have about 15,000 in sales CAC, a little more than that, probably 20. So let's just round up. So it's $50,000 I spend every month on sales and marketing. We get around 150 customers, and so if we did the math, my ASP is also $150 a month. So I can basically say that I get my payback in 3 to 5 months. And I don't think, like you're saying, most companies aren't
especially when you're talking to traditional companies. You're talking companies that are like established, bigger organizations, spending tens and thousands of dollars on trade shows and things of that nature, where they go spend money where they know it has worked in the past. But they're so
hesitant to try something new.
Else. Right. But then they're not even smart enough to do the math today to say, hey, I spent $40,000 on a trade show. I walked away with 400 business cards. They're not necessarily even buyer. But I'm wasting money on this. But they're not doing the math to say this business card HubSpot is costing me $400 a pop,
Right.
and I'm having my sales engineer who costs me $100,000 a month,
Right.
$100,000 a year to actually call on
plus
this
my
company.
sales guy. Yeah,
Correct,
exactly.
So
whereas I can hire a freelance writer and for a few grand a month I can get 10 articles. I have one article that generates 1,000 sessions a week for us, and that converts to signups for me at 4%. So what's that? 40 signups a week from that one article that we wrote.
Several years
2
ago.
years ago.
Yeah.
We'll update it every few months, and mostly because it'll help us get grow the traffic to it. And so.
And now also.
And I'm just constantly we're publishing 4 or 5 articles a week. Not everyone it performs that well, but on a whole, they're performing very well.
Yeah, and obviously the shift is we're all becoming less. We don't want to be interrupted as much at all, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we're less likely to want to talk to somebody like you said. Even your entire business, you're not even talking to the customer.
Yeah, it's funny.
Self-service.
We'll answer people's questions, and we'll maybe ask a few questions. We'll offer them a call. We have a handful of the people on the team who can jump on a call and give a demo, or help them set something up literally on the call or whatever. And I'd be surprised the number of people say, "No, I'm good."
Yeah.
But and then they go on to buy.
Yeah.
It's just people want to figure it out. I still think there's a role for sales.
There's definitely
for sure. And for a while I was saying all sales should be automated. I do eventually think sales will be automated. Drift came out with something new yesterday that I hadn't seen before of using real machine learning, where they're actually monitoring your chat conversations and then using that information, your responses to questions you asked, to then automate it to follow future conversations, and so I think we'll get there, but there's still a role, especially now, for good salespeople who can ask good questions, get to the heart of the issue, figure out what the person's trying to accomplish, and point them in the right direction.
Yeah.
And my team does that every day.
And some of those
really
stats
valuable.
that Serious Decision put out maybe 5-6 years ago, that almost 67% of the sales
journey
is done before the buyer ever reaches out to sales rep. I think that stat's even
it's going to continue to go. But
correct. Because people are more likely to just read and learn, and then only reach out if they're really reading your help. You went from a VP of sales, built over $100 million in revenue when you were leaving HubSpot at the time, and then now you're running you're CEO of an organization. What are some of the lessons you've learned being in that role today, and what's some actionable items that you can give to some future business leaders?
When I started, it was 12 people. It was one support guy, all engineers, and me. And so it was relatively simple. Except the fact that I was trying to do a lot of crap all day. I know you've been there. And so now we're 40. We're a little over 40 people. And so we have not only everybody in all the key roles, but we have redundancy in all the key roles now. And so my role has changed significantly from it went from doing things to managing things to teaching my managers and directors how to manage and direct, and making sure they're doing well and the right things. Now it's much more of we have a great team all across the board, but the directors are doing a great job, and it's really a matter of keeping everybody aligned and focused on the right things. Something I didn't appreciate that HubSpot really does well is, I didn't appreciate at the time, is focus. I think a lot of it came in really when J.D. Sherman, who's the COO, kind of came in, but it's picking a focus where you have the whole team rallied around maybe 1, 2, 3 things per year. In a larger organization, I think it needs to be smaller. We do a few things per team, but at that top level, we're focused on literally on one thing. For the past 6 months, we were focused on how do we remove friction in the setup process. Right now, we're shifting more towards how do we reduce our cancellation rate. And so the whole company comes up with things to work on around that. And so that there might be different ways to attack that. There's ways to reduce churn by having a better selling process, right? There's ways to reduce churn by having more targeted marketing. There's ways to reduce churn by preventing people from canceling who look like they might cancel based on our data. So there's all different ways to do it, but everybody's focused on that one number. And so really a lesson I learned at HubSpot, it was kind of forced on me. I remember sitting down with my old boss, Mark Roberge, and and like, and saying, well, what do you even work on this quarter? And I had like this long list of like 20 things, and at the time I probably had like 4 or 5 salespeople, and he's like, you can't do all that. I'm like, but I got 4 or 5 people, we can split it up, we'll get a ton. And it's like, no, you can't do that. So, it was like, pick your 3 things, and I'm like, all right, well, here's my 5. But in reality, like, I didn't get movement on more than 2 of them. So it was a good learning lesson to see how HubSpot did that, and I've been able to apply that. But in the beginning, it was a little hard at DataBox. There's so much to do in a startup, as you know. But I think over time, as we've actually gotten more people and we have more standardized processes for things, like we can pick the thing that we want to improve and work on that together. And it's so important for not just for getting shit done, but also for the culture of the company. Because then at the end of the day, when you make an improvement in that metric, you can all celebrate it because you all had an influence on it. You can't always measure the direct impact of one person or one team's impact on things, but if you're all working on the same number and you improve it, then like some of the stuff you did worked, right? And I think that's really important for a team.
Yeah, and also it's that transition from being a manager to the leader, right? Because you're making that transition. Because as entrepreneurs, we have that, we want to have a lot of things done, and we're involved in too many things, but it's not helping anybody. But I think, I mean, I'm also in the business world, so one of the things that I've had trouble with is, I want to have a say in everything, and I want to have a hand in everything. So I have a hard time delegating stuff, and then entrusting into other people to say, okay, you're capable, more than capable of actually doing that job. So
I think it was a lesson I learned at HubSpot in to some degree in delegating. I had multiple layers under me, so there's no way I could inspect everything and figure. So I think I got pretty good at that at HubSpot. At DataBox, I have really focused in on it. There's just no way that I could influence every part of the company. Well, not every day, but I, of course, influence every part of the company, but there's no way I can do that on a regular basis. I can't inspect everything. And so it's really about how do I build a system, how do I build measurement systems, and how to build management systems that not only am I delegating to my team, but they're delegating to their team. And some of my directors are better than that than others. Some of them haven't been staffed appropriately to do that well, and so we're there's a process of going through, which I think takes it takes a good year for a company to figure out as we grow. Like we went from, probably had 20 employees this time last year, so doubling the team. And once you have more people, you can delegate more, and you don't have to do everything. And when you know that person you're delegating does a great job on stuff, you don't even have to worry about it as much, right? Or if when they decide to do something, they think through, how am I going to measure what I'm doing? How am I going to measure the outcome of that? Like the getting people into the frame of the reference. How am I going to communicate what I'm doing to the rest of the team? And so we have systems and processes, not just for doing the work, but also for picking our priorities, communicating what those priorities are, measuring how much of that we're doing. For example, we'll measure how much content we're publishing and share that, and we have a goal around that. But we of course have a goal on the outcome of that, which is how much traffic and signups, I guess. So, but every project we do, we try to come up what's the output that we're producing and what's the outcome of that of that work, and then sharing that, and then. On a quarterly basis, we're deciding what those priorities are. On a monthly basis, we set goals and we're reporting against the goals. On a weekly basis, we're actually the front line of the team is reporting out their progress on the goals as well as their progress on the output. And so that way, I have instant visibility to everything. Not to mention, I have all the data in real time, right, using our own software. So, but I have that instant visibility, and I have the accountability of the team reporting how they're doing, and then telling the rest of the team how they're doing and what they're doing. And so that has been a game changer for us, in that, for me especially, in that like I can now see everything that's happening and make sure it's aligned, and I can see, all right, this guy's got too much on his plate and he's not going to get to this, and it's important for this guy to get to this so that he can help this guy over here with that. And so I think that process has really enabled us to delegate effectively.
Yeah, and you mentioned I've heard this quote go around, like people do what you inspect, not what you expect.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you're gonna have to have some
Yes.
metrics that you hold them responsible or accountable to, so that you can make sure that they.
Yeah,
get those.
we haven't been hardcore about assigning individual targets to people. We do have individual targets for people, but we really do is focus in on the team targets and celebrate those. And it's up to the manager and one-on-ones when someone's not performing. But for the most part, we haven't had an issue with that. Everybody feels committed to their teammates and wants to do their part. And I think the traditional way of running sales, where everybody's got a target and kind of everybody goes, and it's like screw you, I need to hit my target. Like that culture is, I don't know that that's
healthy.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so I like this thing set up where we have team targets, and individual performance is handled through performance reviews and one-on-ones, and very few people leave because of performance. Right. I've had 3 people leave because they wanted to go do something else somewhere else, but other than that, like, we've had no one else leave because of performance.
But on the sales side, if you have a sales organization, you still need to have individual targets as well, right? So
we don't. We don't. So let me step back. We don't do commissions, so we're not firing people off of performance. We haven't had to.
Yeah.
Not saying I wouldn't if somebody's completely slacking or not performing, but we have a team target, and then we break that down into individual targets, both on what we expect them to do, like how many chat conversations they got to have, and how many calls they might have if they're doing calls. But and then we track the close rate, and we have expectations on what will close. We don't want them on calls for the sake of it. But I haven't. Somebody might take a 2-week vacation, and I want them to take a 2-week vacation, and so I'm not going to hold them to that target. Or somebody's sick, or somebody had an emergency surgery a few months ago. I'm like, all right, well, it's fine. Just go get your surgery. You got to get your surgery. So like we haven't had to go to that point where we have individual targets or commissions. Everybody's paid on a salary, and it feels like it's working. I think part of it is that it's more of a support sales model. I actually call it pre-sales support. We don't call them salespeople. It's not that I'm against sales. It's just not what they're doing. They're really just helping the user set up the product. And I don't know that I need to go to a world where I have commissions and performance plans based off of how many calls did you have or didn't have, or how many deals you did or didn't close.
And especially, I think it all comes down to the average deal size as well, right?
Yes.
Especially if there's some product. Especially if the product.
$150 a month.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I know you got a lot. You're a CEO. You got so much going on, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the productivity hacks that you have in terms of making you stay efficient?
I don't know that I'm the best guy to talk about productivity. I find it really difficult to be productive in my role, as productive as I want to be, I should say, in that, because like every day I'm doing something different. So like taking last week an example, like for one day I was writing a script for a training or editing a script for a training program. The next day I was shooting it with them. The day after that I was finalizing product strategy on a new feature we're launching. And the day after that I built a deck for our board meeting. So it's like there's no consistency for me, at least in terms of the things I do. I think over time I will do less of that myself, but I'm still involved in projects and pushing things forward. I'm not involved in day-to-day anymore, which is good, which allows me to do the more strategic projects. And so that's huge. But I think my team is actually really good at this stuff. So everything we do goes into Asana. That's our project management tool that we use. And so we have a lot of conversations in there when we're first formulating a project. And then for the product team's amazing at this. They scope out every project. They estimate time for everything. They have dependencies built in there. They have a full timeline on everything. They do agile, so that like the week-to-week stuff might change based on where we have or haven't made progress. But they lay out things, and we actually we laid out a project that's a year long, and they're nailing it 6 months in. And so like they're really good at it. I think we've tried to adopt more of that in the rest of the organization. I'd say on the marketing side, we're now pretty good at doing things in Asana that we do regularly. Like we pump out a lot of content, and so we have a process that starts with literally the idea and goes all the way through to the promotion. And we have a board where we can see the status of everything. And there's probably 6 separate distinct stages in there for from the idea to publish, idea to promote, I should say. And so like that's all very process driven as well. So I'm a big advocate of like, if you can look at what you're doing and figure out what all the steps are, and build a process, then there's like a decision tree. It's like the first question I ask is like, can we not do this ourselves and let our customers do it? So like instead of us figuring out how to track a specific metric? Can we build something that they can do it themselves, right, and figure it out themselves? So that's our first one. So self-service, or simplify our self-service. The second one is, can I automate it? Can I use a workflow, or can I create something with Zapier that automates something, or can I integrate two tools that aren't integrated and make it work? The third one is, can I partner? Like, can I find somebody out there like you guys that want to do that work, that and can do it profitably, and that we can say, hey, we'll partner and you do this for our customers, right? The fourth one is then to outsource. It's like, do I have to hire somebody full time to do this, or can I find somebody who maybe is even an expert at this and does it for 3 other companies, and they can even make us better because I'm outsourcing them and they're really good at it. And the last one is, can I delegate it? And so, like, obviously there's a hierarchy in the organization, and so, like, that last question is more for, like, my directors and managers, is can they delegate it to somebody that's newer, somebody that that's on their team, so that they're not doing it. Because what I want them doing is constantly thinking, how do we improve, how do we reduce our costs, how do we grow faster, and so by having that 5-step questions, it's like that just helps us think through how can we avoid just adding costs to our process and keeping things low. And what that allows us to do, I think, is keep our prices low, which allows us to serve more companies effectively. And so that's our whole goal, is like, how do we continue to serve as big a part of the market as possible, and especially help the little guys. I'm just for whatever life reasons, I'm passionate about helping smaller businesses. A lot of my uncles had businesses in my aunt's time. My mother cut hair in our house for my whole childhood, and just passionate about helping people that have the balls to go start their own business. And so I like being able to serve those people. I think you can have a big impact on people's lives.
It's an amazing passion to kind of put your skin into that.
Yep.
So one last question that I have, and I've been asking this a lot of entrepreneurs, you can have an afternoon with Warren Buffett, or you can have $1 million. Which would you choose?
I don't know if Warren Buffett's my hero, but it would be interesting, I guess. Yeah, I'd go with Warren Buffett.
Awesome. Well, thanks again.
I don't know what I'd do with the million at this point.
But probably pump it into sales and marketing.
I would just put it back in the market where everything else.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for
saying. Oh, you mean $1 million for the company?
It doesn't
then
matter.
I take the $1 million if it's for the company. If it's for me, then I'm fine. But if it's $1 million with no equity involved, then I'll take it for the company.
And try to figure out how to scale it, right?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for sitting down with me, Pete. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
This episode of Coffee with Closers is brought to you by One IMS, a leading digital marketing agency helping businesses win new customers. To request a free marketing ROI audit, please visit oneims.com. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe.